I want justice. Justice for Trae. My name is Trae Darson. I am the mother of Trae Darson. On August 30th, 2006, my son Trae was murdered by Officer Larry Whitman of the Columbus Police Department. According to witnesses and statements that have been provided, my son Trae was coming out of this store here, Sunshine International Food Mart. The officer had pulled up in his cruiser behind a friend that he was riding with that night, and when he came out of the store, the officer had walked up to the driver's side of the vehicle with his weapon drawn. He shot into the vehicle. My son took off running over to the alley, and it's my understanding at that time that he was shot in his back. He fell face forward on the ground. The officers handcuffed him and tased him that night. Trae was running for his life. He ran because he was afraid. He was feared of the police. I'm going to show you exactly the last steps that Trae took during the night of August 30th, 2006. Trae was exiting this store, Sunshine International Food Mart. Larry Whitman, the Columbus police officer, had pulled his cruiser into this parking lot behind the vehicle, came to the driver's side, and shot his weapon through the vehicle. My son Trae proceeded to run around the building, at which time he had been shot, and he was trying to get away because he was afraid. Officer Whitman did not state how many times that he had shot his weapon. He said he couldn't remember. So afterwards, my son Trae was lying over in the alley, face down. Officer Brent had handcuffed him. Officer Drake had tased him. And it was my understanding that my son was shot in his back. Okay, my son Trae was a customer coming out of the store. He took 3 steps. Once the officer had shot through the vehicle, he took 3 steps and ran around the building. There's a surveillance camera here. There's a surveillance camera on the end of the building, around on the side of the building. But nothing was able to capture anything but Trae running. And the next frame showed officers standing over there in the alley over his body. It's my understanding that things were planted around his body. A black bag, sunglasses, other items were planted. A gold chain with a medallion on it. All of those things were planted over here in the alleyway. So my son Trae ran. This way. There were 2 vehicles parked here on the end. So he ran here. At the time it was a dumpster on the corner. Here's the surveillance camera here. Here's the surveillance camera here. But neither camera caught the actual shot that murdered my son Trae. Trae ran over in this area. Trae ran over in the alleyway, and his body was laying up here. Everything else that was planted beside him was further down. There was a bullet hole in the side of the building, as well as a bullet hole in the side of the store building right here, outside of the store building. That bullet hole was in the front of the building, and a second bullet hole was over here in this wall. So Trae's body lay there. He was not permitted for EMT to come and give him life-saving techniques. So they let him lay here 15 to 20 minutes, and he bled out. Trae was trying to run to the back because there was a fence and a hole through the fence that individuals used to come through to get as a shortcut to get through the store. So he was trying to get through the hole that night. That night, it's like none of the other officers were here at the time. They were coming off of Ambleside and Satinwood. And the night that Officer Whitman came to this location, he was at a domestic violence call, a domestic disturbance call. I could never find anywhere that he wrote a report to that effect. But by the time he got here, it was around 10:30, 10:40, 10:30, 10:33, 10:40, my son was dead. So he was determined not to let my son get away. And he even said in his statement that he came around and the center mass was his target, and that's where he shot him. And he ended up dying. None of the residents at A, B, C, or D located at these apartments were ever questioned. So there was a police officer that went into the D apartment, yes, to the D apartment, and spoke to someone that resided there at the time. There were no statements taken the night of August 30th, 2006. And on the morning of August 31st, we went to Riverside Hospital to try to see my son's body. Police officers had told them, do not let us see his body. So we weren't allowed to ever identify his body. And then when we went to the morgue to see, because they had listed my son as a 30-year-old John Doe, but he had his driver's license on his person that night. So for them to go ahead and say that they did not know who Trae was, that's not true. So after going to the morgue, they said that the body had been moved to the coroner's office. So after seeing the report, even their computers were down that night at Riverside. So everything was allegedly handwritten. So even after getting there, after leaving Riverside Hospital, we went over to the coroner's office and was told that they were already doing an autopsy. Officer Whitman did not give a statement the night of August 30th. He refused to give a statement. He didn't give a statement until 19 days later, in September of 2006. Once an attorney or someone was present, but the attorney was present that night when they questioned him, but he refused to give a complete statement. But after 19 days, he was able to remember exactly everything that transpired the night of August 30th, 2006. That was under oath. He didn't want to go ahead and give a statement the night of August 30th. He had to wait 19 days later to say what happened on the night of August 30th, 2006. I have grave concerns that we never received any answers, never spoke to any of the detectives, police officers, or anyone from Columbus Police. But I do have grave concerns that no one in this area was ever questioned as to what transpired on the night of August 30th, 2006. Also, there were witnesses in witness statements and they don't really line up with what actually transpired here. Wasn't able to get my son's body from the coroner's office. Columbus police moved my son's body at 1:30 a.m. in the morning and took it to the coroner's office. When we got there the morning of August 31st, 2006, they were actually doing an autopsy. So I went over there thinking I was going to identify my son's body. I asked them who identified him. They said Columbus police. I asked them who gave them permission to do an autopsy. They said that his body belonged to Columbus police, and that the officers were in there, and as well as the coroner, Bradley Lewis. So a technician had informed me that I didn't want to see my son's body because his body was messed up. Tubes everywhere. And he stated to me that the police do mysterious things, and he couldn't understand why they didn't let them use their service, the coroner's office service, to come and pick up that body. So there's so many questions and unanswered questions, so many discrepancies and inconsistencies and everything that transpired that night. So I want to know what happened to the surveillance camera footage. What happened to dash cam footage? Why was Larry Whitman, who was a rookie that night, traveling by himself, came here solely and just shot through the vehicle? And then he said in his report that he used my son's center mass like he was a target. So I feel he intentionally wanted to murder him that night. So we want truth and justice and answers, even to this day. How this affected us, it affected us tremendously. This was tragedy. It was very tragic. To this day, I still cry. I still want to know what happened to my son. It's like, because we don't have any answers even to this day. So we cry. It's like, for the longest, I waited for him to come home because I didn't understand that he had been murdered. So I just want to make sure that he's able to get the justice that he deserves, and that Larry Whitman is charged for murdering my son the night of August 30th, 2006. Emotionally and physically, this has broken my heart, and this is something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, because the effect that it has is forever. They took someone very special away from our family, and I cry all the time. And I want individuals, you know, this affected his siblings, this affected his friends, and this affected everyone that was connected or tied to him. And we want justice for our family. We want answers. We want him to be held accountable. We want accountability. I'm broken, and my life will never be the same without my son in it. I cry all the time. I'm very emotional now. I panic when I see police officers. It's like it's just made me very fearful. So I realistically will never be the same. And I'm just crying and crying and very emotional. What I want more than anything is justice for my son Trae, and for Larry Whitman to tell the truth as to why he murdered him that night. I want him to take accountability and responsibility for him shooting my son on the night of August 30th, 2006. I want proper closure. My son Trae was loved by his family. He was a born-again believer. He helped everyone that he came in contact with. He was a mentor. It's like he helped feed the homeless. It's like he was born again. God, he was filled with God's spirit. And he was a good son. He loved to help his mother do whatever she asked him to do. He was the middle child of 4. And I miss him immensely. I miss him dearly. And I really, if I could tell him again how much I love him, I want to do that. He was kind-hearted, very athletic. It's like he just loved life, and he loved people. He loved everyone that he came in contact with. So I thank and praise God just for giving me him and loaning him to me for 20 years. I need justice for Trae, to bring about closure, to give us peace. We buried him, and after not getting his body for 9 days, and I don't know any more today as to why he was murdered than I did. It's getting ready to be 14 years, August 30th, 2020. I seek justice for my son Trae. I want justice. Justice for Trae.